Okay, so what is the Virginia House of Burgesses and why do you need to know about it? So Virginia initially was colonized by a private company called the Virginia Company. Back then, it was very expensive to colonize an area, so private companies would often do it under royal charter. And the way these charters worked is the king would say, okay, you can colonize from such and such latitude and longitude to here, you know. So the Virginia Company was given this certain swath of land that they were able to colonize, which they did. So they came over, they founded Jamestown in Virginia. Virginia is so named for Queen Elizabeth, the Virgin Queen. So they colonized it, and in around 1620 or 21, the king, and I can't remember who it is at the time, Charles maybe, decides, you know what, I've had it, I'm taking it over. So he takes it from the Virginia Company, and he appoints the first governor of Virginia, who is your ancestor, Sir Francis Wyatt. Now, Sir Francis Wyatt, I'm going to go into Sir Francis Wyatt in another video because he's a big deal. So Sir Francis Wyatt creates the first General Assembly of Virginia. Now, what is the General Assembly? So they still have that today, by the way. There's a General Assembly in Virginia, but that is the first legislative body in America that was created in America, and actually of any British colony at the time. So, and it was created by your ancestor, Sir Francis Wyatt. So it was, the way the General Assembly was set up is kind of like the British system, House of Lords, House of Commons. So the upper house, it was bicameral, so the upper house would have been the governor himself and his appointed magistrates, and the lower house was called the Virginia House of Burgesses. Now, the Virginia House of Burgesses was comprised of 2 burgesses from each county. Now, these burgesses were elected by the landowners of their county. So this is the first democratically elected representative government in America, was the Virginia House of Burgesses. And because you had so many ancestors that colonized Virginia at that time, you have a lot of Burgesses that are in your family. I mean, well over a dozen House of Burgess members are your ancestors. And the reason the House of Burgesses would become so important is because during this time, from the early 1600s all the way up to the mid 1700s, the colonies, the Virginia colony, was kind of left to their own devices. And these House of Burgesses were running the show. And in times when England was involved in a civil war, they were appointing their own governors. So you had the Americas basically running their own affairs for a very long period of time, for generations, over 100 years, without royal interference. Well, so after the French and Indian War, what would happen is that the king would be like, hey, you colonies need to start paying for the fact that we had to go to war over you. So that's when they started to levy taxes. And this is when, so a lot of the unrest that would start the American Revolution would find its voice in the Virginia House of Burgesses. And it would also be where a lot of America's founding fathers would cut their teeth. George Washington, Thomas Jefferson, Patrick Henry, all Virginia House of Burgesses. So in fact, there's a famous painting of Patrick Henry in the Virginia House of Burgesses. I'll try and attach it to this video. You know, his Give Me Liberty, Give Me Death one. So as I said, lots of your ancestors in that organization. And I think there's even there's a lot of lineage organizations that you guys qualify for. I think there's even one about the House of Burgesses. There's obviously the Colonial Dames, which is if you're a female and you're descended from colonial government, somebody who was important in colonial government, which a House of Burgess member would be, you can be a Colonial Dame. There's a Jamestown Society. Obviously, you guys could be part of that. Okay,